Hello and welcome to Conscious Conversations with One Breath Institute with your hosts Lisa McNett and Debbie Schirmann. Tune in for mind-blowing conversations on how to be more conscious and present in your life.
Topics we cover include healing, spirituality, introspective breathwork, astrology, dreams, alternate states of consciousness, and so much more. Hear from us and our interesting guests. Make sure to follow and subscribe to easily find us and listen again.
Welcome, everyone. I am Lisa McNett. I am founder of One Breath Institute and co-host for Conscious Conversations. And today, Debbie Schirmann and I will be speaking about arriving present and being in the present moment. Debbie, anything you want to say as you are entering into the space?
Well, the word presence always reminds me of an actual gift, right? They're so close to each other in words. And because of my own practice of arriving presence, the word just activates me to tune inward and see what experiences my body is going through, what sensations are alive, loud, and even the more quiet or whisper ones. So that's the very first thing that happens to me when I hear the word presence. And today there's so much with this word presence, right? Arriving to presence is connecting to the self, maybe the breath, all the sensations that's existing within me, and then also consciously connecting with who or what is external and maybe in my environment. Well, externally, physically. So yes. So right now I'm actually going to uncross my legs because my legs are saying, hey, put your feet on the ground a little bit. So I'm going to do that. And I'm noticing my hands are just wanting to do this today. There's so much energy. Lisa just completed her interview for the Shift Network. And so I am just high-vibing off of that and celebrating that. And we are transitioning into now recording this podcast around presence.
Yes, and it was really inspired by the experience with the Shift interview, and that experience was just a reminder. So Debbie and I met before I went into the interview, and I'll backtrack. Yesterday, I was feeling like I need to prepare for this. I need to go over some of the things I'm going to say. I need to really get ready for this interview. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, I don't. And not only I don't, but I literally can't. How am I going to get ready for this interview? And yeah, Debbie and I met before going in. I just had so much energy moving, so much. And this is a big deal for me. It's something that I've been calling in for a few years now and really want to be a part of, the Breathwork Summit. And so it's so exciting. And when something is a big deal, especially, we want to get it right? Like we want to do a good job. And Debbie was just reminding me before I went in that I'm going to just speak to Niraj, the founder of Soma Breath. He is who is interviewing me. That Niraj is going to show up and we're going to have a conversation. And he's going to ask me whatever questions he's going to ask me. And I'm going to respond because I know what I'm like. I'm going to just respond with whatever needs to be said in the moment. And that's what happened. That's what happened. And so whereas I thought the conversation was going to go in one direction, it went in a different direction. And that's okay. And that's beautiful. And that is really, yeah, that's speaking to that presence. Speaking to that presence. We can't, if we are preparing really in any way, like in any way for anything, like I guess there's some little bits of preparation that need to come, but how much, right? When we are preparing mentally, we are we're going to be missing something that is presenting itself to us in the moment. So, Debbie, I saw you unmute a second ago.
Oh, I was just saying, I was just like, yeah, it went in this direction, which was the direction it was meant to be in. Because when we arrive in presence, we are connecting with the energy, the frequency of the environment in the moment with the person in front of us, with the present sensations that may want to actually forget all of the preparation that you did. I mean, I'm sure there's so many people that might be listening that say, yeah, I prepared for this speech or I prepared for whatever it is. And then when I arrived on stage or in front of the camera, I just drew blanks. So what do I do? Right? You breathe, connect with your body and just entrust that the present moment is the only moment we ever really have. So of course, yeah, we can prepare all the things that we need, right? Mic, the technological things that just kind of create that foundation, that safety and security, that at least the basics are going to be handled. And then when you arrive in that present moment, you are speaking to a need or a curiosity and you went with that, right? So that's conscious connection, that's conscious communication when you're in the presence of another person, embodying presence. And then from that place, magic happens, right? The conversation just goes and goes and goes. It's not scripted or rigid, it's not limited, right? Because maybe in some ways when one prepares in the mind and then tries to follow through in the presence with that preparation, it can be limiting because you're preparing with yourself, your own script. So you're not in the presence of the energy of someone else. Yeah, it's really quite beautiful how it all happened. And I'm not surprised, right? Not surprised. But there is great benefits to preparing, right? Like practicing, but yeah, just whatever happens in the present moment is supposed to happen in the present moment. No matter how aloof or whatever the feelings and perspectives come after that, like what just happened? I don't know. Exactly what was meant to happen happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're speaking to really self-trust. Trusting the self, trusting that you have everything you need already. You have all of the answers already, trusting that you are perfect exactly as you are, and just trusting yourself and the importance of that. And I think that that's where a lot of us have work to do, and a lot of people have work to do. And I'm not doing this, but, what came to mind as you were speaking is that sometimes, kicking yourself in the butt later, right? Like that, like, you mentioned somebody preparing and then going up on stage, and then all of a sudden they freeze and they don't know what's gonna come through, and it goes a completely different direction. And then later, some frustration can come through of like, "That's not what I meant to happen," or, "That's not how I wanted it to go," or, just, ugh. And so I appreciate your reminder, and I'm just highlighting that piece that, yes, that is how it was meant to go. Yes, that is what you were meant to say. And yes, everything is perfect. And we can be our biggest critics, right? Like, if you walk away from an interaction going like, "Man, I wish like the other person is probably not thinking anything like what you're thinking."
Well, I mean, really, in those moments, Lisa, those are moments that the person wasn't in presence. So anytime one finds himself hypercritical or wishing that something went a certain way, or any type of regret, oftentimes it stems from a reactive place of being, because you use the word freeze, and oftentimes that is that unconscious response to an experience that's not tended to in the body showing itself. So it is exactly what needed to happen, because it's a moment to look at, hey, maybe why did I freeze? Or why am I being so critical? Or why was I not fully accepting of who I am? Or maybe why is not it, but whatever the introspective questioning is around that experience of maybe dissatisfaction of how one showed up, that's an opportunity to ask, was I present? And if so, how did I move with myself in that? Because presence brings consciousness. And so in that example of freezing and like messing, or not messing up, but yeah, maybe going in a direction that stemmed from that trauma response, that's an opportunity to explore what needs tending to. And, in my example, I was just more so seeing your transition of the very little preparation that you did yesterday when we connected yesterday, and then arriving present to be more of a blank slate. So yeah, the word is just more of a blank slate, and leaving it in the past, that preparation in the past, because you're arriving in the present moment.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily taking that as in reference to me. I was just bringing back what was coming up to me about, the perception of these things that can happen, and, yeah, and that's where introspective breath work, that freeze in the moment, right? You're mentioning, like, later on, we can breathe and do some introspective practices, and yes, that's true, and if you have a moment-to-moment relationship with your breath, then you always have your breath to fall back on in the moment when you do freeze or you do feel that tightness, you do feel that unconscious reaction or the body saying like, "Ee, ee. Uh-oh." Yeah. Yeah, and the question of preparation is one, we were talking about recently I was talking about recently, and I was listening to an astrologer last night, to an astrology class last night, and because I was, yeah. I was feeling yesterday like, "No, I don't need to prepare. I just need to, like, I have I got my new webcam, I got my fancy new microphone. I'm actually at a rented office space so that I would be where I knew that I had great internet and undisturbed, no noises, no animals. So I'm all set up and you know, all set up with everything that I needed. Debbie was planned to meet me in advance, but something hit me last night, this, like, wave of anxiety of, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not ready. I need to prepare. No, let me go to the sauna, let me go sweat out, and let me listen to this astrology class that I'm taking." So I'm listening to the astrology class, and, the astrologer is I'll give him a shout out, the Leo King, the Leo King, and he's wild. And, it's called Hypergate. His school of astrology is Hypergate, and he's like he's going on and he's like, "You don't need." So people who are here already, like, have some understanding of astrology and the ability to read astrology, and he's like, "Let me tell you how much preparation you need for astrology. None." He's like, "You don't need any preparation." He's like, "You already wanna know how much I prepared for this, like, right now in order to be able to tell you what's going on today? Here's what I did. I opened up today's chart. There's today's chart. I see this is in the north node, this is here, this is there. This means this. Boom." and then and then all the information about that piece right there comes through because that is what divinely wants to come through. That is, he uses the word God. That is what God and divinity wants me to know and wants me to bring it through right now. And all I need to do is look at that little chart right then and there, and that's what's going to come through. So this was the message that I needed to hear last night. I'm like, and he just kept coming back to that same message about if you're putting it all out, you're putting hours and hours of preparation, then you're not going to be in the divine presence. And I'm like, okay, thank you for the reminder. Thank you for the reminder. And it's just really so true.
It's really so true. And it's just the divine moment, those little messengers in life, right? Like in your experience yesterday of answering to yourself, honoring yourself, right? And saying, okay, I'm going to tend to myself and go to the sauna and sweat it out and connect with things that make me feel good, right? And listen to that. And boom, you got that message and it got to land and plant in a way in your body when you were caring for yourself, right? And I was just remembering when I was a kid, um, being somewhere and just people would just, I don't know, like, have you ever, yes, that is true. Have you ever had someone, just a stranger, and anyone listening, a complete stranger, just come up to you and say something out of the ordinary, but it was just divinely meant for you? That's presence.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
presence, right? That's presence. They're connecting consciously to themselves, to their higher selves, to divinity, to God, and boom, in the moment, delivering that message,
There was a
right?
period of time, where this was, quite a few years ago, and so I don't remember exactly what the game was, what the question was that I asked myself, but I was playing this game, and I was like, "Okay, I wanna see the divine presence in somebody every single day. I wanna see the divinity in someone every single day." And so, Debbie, what started happening, and I would, "Okay, today who am I going to see the divinity in?" Like every day I would play this game. And at some random point in my day, like I would have the most interesting encounter with a person. Like a homeless person would be just over there doing something. I'd see a homeless person, the homeless person would be like like a wink and a wave like okay, that's that's the divinity. That's not the normal reaction that you get from a person in that situation normally. And so I started, yes, it was, messages, different things. So I had fun with that for a while.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. I really do feel that way. It's really beautiful connecting with the present moment. I mean, initially, depending upon the intention, it can feel a little resistance, it can feel a little challenging. And with moving through those waves, waves of whatever it is, those waves, and through practice of it, like it can come and arrive in ease to where you can be walking down the city, turn to make contact with someone. Like that's another thing about presence. Like I'm sure in that moment, in that example, that individual, at the same time, you both boom turned and locked eyes. And so that's how you're receiving that to be that divine message. It's not like you were just waiting and staring at this person, right? It's like you lock eyes with someone and you're communicating, right? You're communicating through the senses, through the electromagnetic waves, through the collective and vibration and frequency and all of the things that our bodies are here to remind us in sensation of connection, of presence. And so, yeah, when you shared that, I literally saw two heads turning, and I'm reminded of how often that happens in my life too, right? Like being in the car and you just like, and at the same time you turn, right? It's not like someone was staring, but at the same time, it's like, oh, hello. Are we supposed to connect before we move on the same path in different directions together? I mean, so that's an example of presence too. And really, we're talking about so many different ways, but presence is here all the time. Nature is in presence all the time. So we're supported by presence and frequency of presence all the time. And we can tune into our presence through tuning into our body. Maybe
You're
not bypassing the mind, right? Because the mind's important,
Well, the
but
mind is part of
connecting
the
too.
body. Mind is part of the
Exactly.
body, but it's you mentioned it's tuning into anything that is available to you in the present moment, right? You mentioned nature, so
Mhm.
tuning into a tree, tuning into the sky, connecting with a bird or a butterfly,
Or
uh,
a ladybug.
a ladybug.
Had so many ladybugs lately. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too, when I connect in presence, um, the unseen gets seen, right? The whispers get loud. The magic and the frequency really rise up and says, "I'm here supporting you. Connect with me." Right? Like there's just this additional, I say additional, but it's just here. It's present. It's all the time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that like the opposite of presence is when we feel contraction, when we feel restriction, right? And when we feel this contraction, when we feel this restriction, we have a tendency to be in like a tunnel vision, right? Like we have less capacity to see, to hear, to feel, to connect. We're in this constriction, like it's like a sucking in. I know not everybody can see what I'm doing, but it's like a sucking in, and that presence, however it is that we can come to that presence and connect, like you said, once we come to that presence, our capacity opens up, the spaciousness opens up, and then we're able to hear, see, feel, connect with so much more, and that is where all the support is. The support is there for you even when you feel constricted and like it's not there. And the way to get back to that support is take some breaths and come to presence. What can you connect with? External, internal resource.
Yeah, when you were doing that tunnel sensation, like, you know, the idea or the concept or sensations of being overwhelmed, right? Like you can be contracted and move inward in this tunnel vision, only seeing one thing or one way, or feeling restricted, maybe stemming from control, right? Wanting to control an outcome, control a situation, and or something else, right? There's a lack of trust in this movement. And when moving back, in my experience, it's equally or can be overstimulating, but in a more relaxed, supportive way where you have choices to engage. Whereas before, when there's a need for control or being restricted, it's like wah, 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 just boom, 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 there all the time, right? Headaches, trembles, anxiety lives here, nervousness, and even IBS sometimes can live in this state too, right? And then that leaning back, that leaning into trust, maybe could be an opposite of control, or surrendering through the process, or allowing is another good word, however that lands for each individual. And then it's just expansive, right? It's literally expansive, and your perspectives shift and change. And once they shift and change, I mean, in my experience, there's very, very minimal chance of ever returning to that one little tunnel. Like once you see, once you know what you don't know, once you feel what's here, in my experience, there's just like no way to go back to anything, to another non present time, non conscious time, non connected place.
And
Yeah,
everybody gets to choose their own life
true.
experience. Yeah, and for some, it's like a dance back and forth. Can be a dance back and forth depending on how much heaviness you're holding, how much trauma you're holding, how much tension you're holding until you get to a point where you really do slough off enough of it and just decide, like, okay, yes, this just feels like a better
Hmm.
place to be. And I want to choose to be in this place.
Hmm. To trust the unknown, to not know what's ahead. to feel freedom. Like this is, there's been a theme of freedom in our school, coming through other people, our students, our community members, speaking to the sensations of freedom. Now, I believe and I know that presence can bring us freedom, and freedom is trusting the unknown, right? We're like flying around. It might be familiar. If freedom right now is flying, it could be running, right? It could be whatever type of movement in this metaphor, but there may be a familiarity in the body sensations or through stimulation, but we may have an idea of where we're going to go. But there's so much freedom and creativity and trust and curiosity along the way. And then how do you know that when you arrive that that's the place? Just kind of keep on going.
Well, that might be the place to rest, to pause, to connect
Totally. Mm-hmm.
until you feel that nudge.
A nudge or
Until you
just
feel
like
that
a pull.
constriction, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, freedom really is, freedom and trust go hand in hand, right? Freedom and trust go hand in hand. When we trust ourselves, trust the universe, trust God, trust whatever language you want to put on, whatever it is you trust, right? But having so much trust and so much faith that you're always going to be fine. You're always going to be great. You have everything you need within you, and the fear can dissipate, and that's where the freedom comes.
Yeah, we didn't even, thank you for bringing that piece in, because a big piece, fear. Yeah, fear is there. It can be. Yeah, that's something that we haven't pinpointed yet. So
I mean,
yeah,
that's
being
really
driven by fear or driven by
that
hope or
fear of
faith.
the unknown. That's that fear of the unknown. That's why people oftentimes hold on to that control. They want to control an outcome. You had spoken to that wanting to control because where am I going? What's going to happen?
Right.
Fear of the unknown. Most people are afraid of the unknown, and the unknown is where the magic happens. So let's take a breath. Yeah. And let's just close here.
Yeah, that feels really good.
So thank you all for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, and
Stay
we
tuned for
will,
the link for the network.
yes, we will be sharing that. It'll be coming out in December. We will be sharing the link, and we want you to register through us so that the Shift Network knows that you are supporting us. And we are so grateful that you are supporting us and that you're part of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lisa.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to this episode all the way to the end. And for that, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
We want to hear from you. Reach out and let us know what you thought of this podcast. And please like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends.